Hi everybody and welcome to Out of the Gate, Daily Racing Form's weekend handicapping preview program. I'm Dan Illman. Thanks so much for watching. Here's what's coming up in this week's edition of Out of the Gate. Daily Racing Form handicappers Mike Beer, Matt Bernier, and I will take a look at three major graded stakes races on Saturday. The Peter Pan Stakes, the local prep at Belmont Park for the Belmont Stakes, the Grade 1 Man o' War Stakes on the turf, and out in Southern California, the Santa Barbara Stakes for fillies and mares. David Aragona's Timeform U.S. Spotlight focuses on the Man o' War. Craig Milkowski's Timeform U.S. Pace Projector, Nicole Russo's Pedigree Pick segment, well, they focus on the Peter Pan as well. Plus horses to watch, best bets, and lots more. So let's break Out of the Gate. We begin Out of the Gate with our Horse Watch segment. Matt Bernier, you found a first-time starter at Delaware that ran off the screen.
Yeah, a little bit of a late start for a horse called Smart Time. This one goes out of the Claudio Gonzalez barn, a homebred for Don Alberto and company. Let's take a look at this horse. This is a 3-year-old colt by Bernardini. And you see at this point, the race is already over. He's gone off to the front, but he relaxed nicely off of a target. And he's pulling away from a 4-5 favorite here. The interesting thing for me with this horse, Bernardini on top, Stormcat on the bottom, 86 buyer, but the track at Delaware on Wednesday afternoon, a little bit weird because some of the races later on the card considerably slower, some of them a little bit on the quicker side. I'm going to be very curious to see what Timeform US eventually awards this horse for a fig, because I think there's a real chance that the Buyer boys ended up splitting up the variant. It could go a number of different ways. I'll just be curious to see what the fig comes back for Smart Time on a Timeform standpoint.
Mike Beer, NYRA analyst, you found a lot of trouble with your horse watch.
Yeah, we're going to look at U-Tread here. This is a Christophe Clement 3-year-old. Debuted at Gulfstream back in March. I liked his debut win from off the pace. I liked the run he put in through the stretch to run down a clear leader. This is his second start. This is an example. We're going to show the start first of all. This horse breaks fine. He's number 3 in this race in the blue and red. He's going forward here. This is an example of a rider just making a big mistake. He's getting himself into a good spot here. You have to continue going forward after you break, and you're going to see Eric Cancel just give away all the position that he had after the start, and he takes this horse all the way back to last after the opening furlong. It's just, you can't give away that kind of position. You can see here if we pick it up on the turn, he's last on the rail, and now Cancel has no options. He cannot go to the outside in the stretch. And you're just going to see him sort of race on behind horses. The winner, of course, in the Klarovich colors on the outside for Chad Brown was always in the clear. He's going to win off here. And this horse is just always in between, trying to race on. He doesn't come clear. He actually runs very well in this race. Considering the position he gave away early to finish 3rd in this race, this horse ran okay. He's a horse to maybe look for next time.
Well, that was certainly not an ideal trip at all. The first turn at those 1 1/16 distances, you're absolutely right. You've got to maintain that position or else you're going to get shuffled as horses try to ease down towards the inside. My horse watch is a first-time starter that scored easily at Laurel. Her name is Zonda. She's a 3-year-old filly. We're going to go to the race right now. She debuted at a 1-turn mile, and she turns into the stretch under a complete hand ride. Jockey Vargas is just going to peek under his shoulder several times, and now it's off to the races. Zonda's going to win by almost 12 lengths. The Beyer speed figure did not come back very strong. It was only a 67 Beyer, but I think she can build off this effort considering her pedigree. Again, she's a scat daddy. Her dam was a stakes winner at 1 mile and 70 yards. The second dam was a grade 2 stakes winner, and it just doesn't get much easier than this for Zonda, trained by Jim Lawrence. I'd like to see them take their time with this filly, just go through their conditions and eventually perhaps find some stakes races, maybe at Monmouth, maybe in the mid-Atlantic area. That's Zonda, my horse watch for this week. Let's get to some handicapping. The Peter Pan Stakes is Saturday's DRF Bets race of the day, and it's the local prep for the Belmont. Let's throw up the small field for Saturday's DRF Bets race of the day. It's the Grade 3 Peter Pan Stakes, carded as race number 4 at Belmont, a 1-turn 1 1/8 over Big Sandy. $300,000 is the purse. Carded as race number 4 for expanded stakes previews of all the graded stakes races this weekend, plus Matt Bernier's take on the Kentucky Derby disqualification on both editions of his show, plus Craig Milkowski and David Aragona's take on the Kentucky Derby controversy on their Timeform US Pacecast, please head on over to video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Mike, Todd Pletcher's got 2 in here, including the morning line favorite, the number 1 Intrepid Heart. He's a half to Commissioner, who was second in the Peter Pan and the Belmont a couple of years ago. And this horse acts a lot like Commissioner.
Yeah, he's got plenty of pedigree to go on in distance, and Pletcher knew that. He debuted him around 2 turns at Oaklawn. A race that I really liked, actually, his debut. He got hooked up on a little bit of a pace that day, left his pace rival around the second turn and won off through the stretch by over 7 lengths. I liked his debut. This is his second start at Keeneland, and he even takes a step forward in this race, guys. They didn't go to the lead this time. They sort of sat on the outside. I like the run he puts in here from the top of the stretch to the wire here. This is the short stretch at Keeneland, and I like the finish he comes with here to run down the horse on the lead. It looks like he just wants to go all day long, so the stretch out is fine for him. He's got a little bit of speed from the inside post, too. You know what? I just think there's a lot to like about this horse. He's a short price in this race, but I'm not going to bet against him.
Matt, Tacitus wasn't the only horse adversely affected by a lot of trouble in the early stages of the Wood Memorial. Final Jeopardy got pinched back pretty badly as well.
Yeah, and you're supposed to just draw a line through the wood for him, unfortunately, that day. This is a horse that I've liked for quite some time for Jason Service, and it felt like the Limehouse, his second lifetime start, probably a little bit short for him, and let's be honest, it was a little bit of a dud. They gave him a little bit of a layoff. We're going to go to his run 2 starts back down at Gulfstream. This is on March the 3rd, and you're going to see him right now go to the front. He's going to get a little bit drifty down the lane. I think that was just him being a little bit green and shying away from the whip. To me, this is still a horse that needs to prove that mentally he's there, but I have to be honest, I think there's plenty of upside here. If you don't like the Pletchers or you want to take a shot against them at 3-1, I think that's a very fair price for a horse like this, and he shouldn't have a problem with the distance.
I agree with Mike that I think Intrepid Heart is the horse to beat. He's a horse I want to use in any kind of multiple race wagers. I'm going to take a small stab against him with the other Pletcher, the number 2 Federal Case, who sold for $650,000 after winning his career debut last fall at Keeneland. He won his first start for Todd. I thought it was a solid enough effort, and then the Holy Bull came up, and he just had all sorts of trouble. He didn't break. He didn't get early position. He tried to come with a 4-wide bid, and he tired. And I really thought Todd would give him another chance to go long and maybe a Derby prep, and it didn't work out. They turned him back sprinting in his last 2 races. We'll go to his last race at Charlestown, just sort of an odd spot, a 2-turn 7-furlong race. He's down inside here. He's basically going to finish evenly behind a horse that wired them. Federal Case, I think, has the talent and the pedigree to go 2 turns. Whether he has the talent to handle a horse like Intrepid Heart or a Global Campaign is a different story. I think Javier Castellano is going to be real aggressive with this horse leaving the gate. I'm hoping he can make the front. A win, maybe a little bit out of reach, but he's going to be a good price, and I'd like to use him with Mike's top selection, the number 1 Intrepid Heart. Nicole Russo's pedigree pick segment. Craig Milkowski's Timeform U.S. Pace Projector focuses on the Peter Pan. Let's go to those segments right now.
Hi everyone, Nicole Russo coming to you for Out of the Gate to take a look at the field for the Peter Pan Stakes on Saturday at Belmont Park. A short field of 5, but this is the traditional local prep for the Belmont Stakes. And there are 2 horses in here who I would be fascinated by pedigree-wise if they were to move on to that 1.5 miles. Let's start with Intrepid Heart, a really talented horse who the connections have taken a patient approach with. He's 2 for 2 in his brief career after this allowance win at Keeneland. Intrepid Heart is by Tappet, who has sired 3 Belmont Stakes winners. He's out of a mare by a Belmont Stakes winner in Touch Gold, and she's produced a couple of graded stakes winners, led by Commissioner, second in the 2014 Belmont Stakes, bred on the same AP Indy line cross as Intrepid Heart. I'm going to love watching this horse continue to add distance as he progresses in his career. Now, Global Campaign won his first 2 starts, including this allowance at Gulfstream, before suffering a setback in the Fountain of Youth, getting back in action here. The colt is a half-brother to multiple Grade 1 winner Bolt d'Oro and to stakes winner Sonic Mule. He's by the outstanding classic sire Curlin. And of course, we always talk about Curlin's classic record, particularly good in the Belmont Stakes, the longest of the American classics, with 2013 winner Palace Malice coming out of his first crop, and 2015 third place finisher Keen Ice, also by Curlin. So as this Triple Crown season continues to evolve, I think the Peter Pan could definitely be worth watching and taking some notes on as we start thinking ahead to that 3rd and longest American Classic in 4 weeks' time. Thanks for tuning in to Out of the Gate. continuing to take you through all of this weekend's action. And next, we'll get you a look at the Timeform US Pace Projector.
Hi, this is Craig Milkowski at Timeform US for this week's edition of Out of the Gate. In the Pace Projector segment this week, I'm going to take a look at the Grade 3 Peter Pan Stakes being run at Belmont Park as the 4th race on Saturday. It's a 1.125 on the dirt. The 1.125 is around just one turn at Belmont Park, unlike most other tracks. And it draws an interesting group of 3-year-old colts. The reason I picked this race is obviously because of the Pace Projector, and I feel there's a horse in here that has a distinct advantage on the field from an early speed perspective. You can see in the upper right-hand corner of that preview page, and then also I'll take a little bit closer look at the enhanced Pace Projector. The 3 has a nice gap over the rest of the field. You can see the early speed rating on the preview page was much higher than the rest. You can see the clear lead on here. So it's just a matter of seeing, is he a horse who could win a race like this? So let's take a little bit closer look at his past performances. In Global Campaigns actually ran very well. He started his race with 2 wins in pretty fast time. He got 1:11 and 1:09 Timeform US speed figures before he kind of got a class test. And I wasn't a big fan of his that day in the Fountain of Youth Stakes, but he actually ran better than I thought. Even though he was 5th, only beaten 5.5 lengths, I think he ran a very good race. He got a 1:15 Timeform US speed figure that day. You can see I've highlighted the pace figures, which were blazing fast. My settings for the race, you can change it in your past performances, is to show the leader and what the leader ran. So there's 166 represent what Hidden Scroll ran that day. But Global Campaign wasn't far behind and actually got within a length when the pace figure was still at a 140 after the 6 furlong mark before tiring a bit late. But he also had a bit of an excuse that day. He grabbed a quarter. He was taken off the Derby trail at that time. You can see I've put his workouts on the right-hand side of the screen. And I drew a line where his last race was. So it looks like he missed about 5 weeks between the race and the training. Well, about 4 weeks. Race was on the 2nd. He next worked out on the 28th. But he's been working really well. You can see that work 2 back. He was 3rd out of 43 with a 59 and 2.5 furlongs. So he looks like he's right back in form. He's obviously healed up, and I think he's not only does he have a tactical advantage, I think he has he's just the best, most talented horse in the race. The horse that's actually the morning line favorite is Intrepid Heart. He's undefeated in 2 starts for trainer Todd Pletcher. He's certainly nothing to knock about the horse. He's run solid enough. He has 105, 109 Timeform US speed figures. But I just think he's stepping way up in competition. He hasn't run in races with particularly quick paces. He's going to chase a speedier rival in here. I think if he tries to deal with him, it's going to be trouble. So I don't even consider him the main threat to Global Campaign. I would consider that to be Final Jeopardy. Final Jeopardy stretched out to a 1.125 last time, his first time around 2 turns in the Wood Memorial. And even though the competition was just a bit too much for him, he still ran a 109 Timeform US speed figure that day. He backed up what he had won in an allowance race the time before. He's dropping back down in class. He gets a smaller field. He's not going to have to encounter traffic. So I think he is the main threat to Global Campaign. So for the Peter Pan, I am going with Global Campaign, but I'll also play some exactas with Final Jeopardy, trying to get that favorite on the morning line Intrepid Heart out of there. That does it for me for this week for Out of the Gate, and I'll see you again next week in the Pace Projector segment.
Are you a horse player looking to raise your game? For over 120 years, expert handicappers have relied on Daily Racing Form as their must-have source for news and data, featuring exclusive buyer speed figures, Timeform US pace figures, and integrated replays. DRF Formulator is the most powerful handicapping tool on the market today. Use what the pros use. Go to drf.com/formulator and enter code DRFTV to get your first card free. drf.com. Raise your game.
Welcome back to Out of the Gates. Several graded stakes races on tap at Belmont Park on Saturday, but one of the better betting races is the Grade 1 $700,000 Man o' War Stakes. Let's take a peek at this field. We are going 1 3/8 on the inner turf. It is carded as race number 10 for expanded stakes previews of many of the graded races all weekend long, plus lots more. Visit video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Matt, we were all impressed by Focus Group's late kick last year for Chad Brown. His first start this year, he showed no rust whatsoever. It didn't help that he got a perfect trip.
I was going to say it's one of those things that, boy, everything seemed to work out beautifully for this horse in the Pan American. Let's go back to that run down at Gulfstream. You're going to see Focus Group is able to shoot up the rail when Village King, who's also in the Man of War, floats off and gives him just a little bit of ground. But the big thing for me, guys, you take a look at the career PPs of Focus Group. All of his races at 1 mile 3/8 and up, I think, are all really, really strong. And guess what? That's what we're dealing with here on Saturday, 1 mile 3/8. I think he takes a forward step here, second off the bench. And again, he's 5-2. Look, it's chalk and it's Chad, but I just think he's really coming into this in good form again.
Mike, your top selection in this race took a gigantic leap forward when switched to the turf. Now, his seasonal debut didn't go exactly as planned.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that Arklow, he's number 4 in this race. They tried to get him a prep at Keeneland. He dropped his rider at the start, so it's hard to say how much he really got out of that race. We'll see if it affects him at all on Saturday. I like this horse, though. I like the improvement he showed when they stretched him out last year. He won 2 races in a row, including a grade 3 at 1.5 miles. We're going to look at his race after that. This is the grade 3 Sycamore at Keeneland. And you're going to see him up there battling for the lead. He's going to take over in the stretch, coming up the rail in the Pink Silks. Is a horse that he's going to have to run against again in this spot. Zulu Alpha. Zulu Alpha just got a perfect trip in this race. I feel like Arklow ran every bit as well as that horse did in here after making a premature, uncovered move to get up on the lead in here. This was not a poor performance, and he exited this race, and I thought he ran just fine in the Breeders' Cup, went 4th in his next start. To me, this is a wide-open kind of race. It's a really good field, but he's going to be a very fair price in this race, and I actually feel like he fits really well in this field.
Trainer Todd Pletcher won this race last year with the South American bred High Happy. Is going to try to repeat the feat with Village King. When we saw Village King in the Pan American drift off the rail, it allowed Focus Group to shoot on through. What we didn't see was that race began to heat up at about the half-mile pole. Village King was on the lead throughout, and that pace really quickened when a horse mid-moved on him. Village King eventually put the mid-mover away, just couldn't hold off the closers. I think it was the best race he's run since shipping to North America for Pletcher, and he's coming into this race in good form. There is other speed in this race. I'd like him to take back, stalk, and get the jump on the true closers in the stretch. He's a big price, but I'm hoping Village King can make it 2 years in a row a Todd Pletcher Man o' War trained winner. We'll move out to Southern California for the Santa Barbara Stakes for fillies and mares on the turf. Let's throw up the field for the feature race at Santa Anita on Saturday. It's the Grade 3 Santa Barbara Stakes. It's 100 grander. We're going 1.5 miles on the turf, carded as race number 5. For expanded stakes previews and lots more, visit video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Matt, cause for commotion, was coming into form last year before she was injured. She missed a lengthy amount of time, but I thought she came back with a really useful prep, and you could argue she's at her best stretching out to this distance.
Yeah, that's kind of the big thing. You go back to her runs last year. She really took that big step forward when they stretched her out in distance. Then, unfortunately, she was gone for a while. Let's take a look at the return effort, which, like you said, Dan, I can't agree more. Seems like it was nothing more than a means to an end. You see her wheeling out right now. Keep in mind, Timeform US had all the fractions color-coded blue. This race is at a flat mile. We think additional ground is going to be to her benefit. And she finished ahead of a couple of decent horses. The 4th place finisher was the next out winner with an 84. I'm not going to fault anyone that chalks out here and takes her at 9-5.
Mike, Animosity began her career like a nice horse for Patty Gallagher, and after being graded placed in start number 3, I think Patty threw a lot at her at a short amount of time, and maybe it was just a little bit too much. I think she's cycling back to her best in her 3rd start of the form cycle.
Yeah, that's how I look at her too, Dan. I was pretty high on her early in her career. I'll readily admit I had a thing for her after her first couple of starts. You know, she did look to me kind of like a horse who just didn't have it all figured out early on. And as you say, they threw an awful lot at her, and maybe it was just too much. We're going to look at right now her most recent start. This is second off the layoff, second start as a 4-year-old. And yeah, she got loose on the lead in here. She had a very soft trip right up front, and she wires this field. I was just encouraged to see her just look a little bit more settled early in the race this time. It looked like maybe she's grown up a little bit, and if she has, and she takes another step forward in a race like this, I think she can be a factor in here. I want to take a shot with her.
I'm hopeful somebody keeps her honest up front, because the filly on the outside there, Juliana, I want to give her the benefit of the doubt. Second off the bench here. I think additional ground is going to help. That race was at 1 1/8. Now they'll go out to 1.5 miles. And I like that Flavian Pratt stays aboard. It feels like the added ground is going to be to her benefit, but really it is going to boil down to pace. If somebody doesn't keep her honest on the front end, Animosity is going to be tough.
I agree with Mike. I like Animosity in here. It seems that her only pace rival is on the far outside. That is a horse stretching all the way out from 6.5 furlongs to 1.5 miles, but that horse is also cross-entered in a seemingly easier spot on Sunday. I'm hoping she scratches. I'm hoping Animosity gets to the lead, and I'm hoping she stays the trip. She is by Kentucky Derby winner Animal Kingdom, so does have some stamina in her pedigree. We'll go to David Aragona's Time Form U.S. Spotlight segment. He always looks for value. He's got a play in the Man o' War at Belmont.
Hi everyone, I'm David Aragona with this week's Timeform US Spotlight. There's an excellent card of racing on Saturday at Belmont Park, a bunch of stakes races scattered throughout the day. I want to take a look at the feature race on the card. It goes as race 10. It is the Grade 1 Man o' War going 1 3/8 miles on the turf. It drew a field of 9, and we'll begin by looking at the Timeform US pace projector for this race because it might look a little weird that we're predicting a fast pace in this race, but I think there are some things to unpack to help us to understand why the pace projector is sorting the horses out in this fashion. You see the two Aidan O'Brien runners, the number 1 Hunting Horn and the number 5 Magic Wand, shown up front, and that's because we're only considering their U.S. races in this pace projector, and Hunting Horn in particular has been a part of some honest paces in a few of his U.S. races, particularly in the Secretariat last year as a 3-year-old and in the Breeders' Cup Turf where he was contesting a pace that fell apart. Magic Wand, she's been stalking in both of her U.S. races, so that's why they're projected to be up close to the pace, and horses like Village King, who's more of a front runner, as well as Epical, are predicted to be just off the pace. I'm not going to be surprised if Village King and Epical are the two pace headers in this race, but the pace projector is just highlighting that both of the Aidan O'Brien runners do possess the speed to be challenging for the lead and could force the pace in the early going to make it at least honest up front. I don't think this is a race by any means that's going to fall apart necessarily and set up for deep closers. We'll begin by looking at the race favorite, the number 6 Focus Group, among the main contenders. I'm a big fan of Focus Group. If you've been following my analysis for the past year, this is a horse that I've always been high on. The problem with taking Focus Group in this race is his form is just really exposed at this point. He's a horse that at one point had shown some ability in races as they were beginning to stretch him out in distance, but now that they have stretched him out, we've seen the kind of horse that he really is. He's stepping up to face Grade 1 foes for the second time in his career. He couldn't quite get the job done in the Canadian International last year, but his first race as a 5-year-old in the Pan American suggests that he really is coming into 2019 in top form. He got a great ride that day from Irad Ortiz, and if he gets another trip like that in this spot, he's going to be tough to beat. He's 5-2 on the morning line. I could see him going even lower than that given the connections, and I'm using him. I think he's in some ways is the most likely winner of this race. I just want somebody else to offer a bit more value. The number 5 Magic Wand, one of 2 Aidan O'Brien horses, is another horse that is likely to take some money in this race. Aidan O'Brien, though, does not have the strongest numbers with his female runners coming over to race the United States. Over the past 5 years, he's just 2 for 39 with fillies and mares racing on U.S. soil, mostly in Grade 1 company, so really comparable spots to where Magic Wand is racing in this Man o' War. She's run fine in her recent races. Her race in the Shima Classic last time just wasn't that great. She got beat by her stablemate Hunting Horn at the wire that day. It was no match for Old Persian, the winner, as well as 2 Japanese runners. But she ran okay in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf last year, and she certainly wasn't disgraced behind Bricks and Mortar in the Pegasus World Cup Turf 2-back. She's okay. She doesn't really do a whole lot for me in this race. And at another short price, she's one that I was a little bit against, though I'll definitely use her underneath in exotic wagers. I'm interested in 2 other horses who are going to be slightly bigger prices. One of those is the number 8 Channel Maker, and I realize he's not the most trustworthy sort, but he's the kind of horse that I think could really appreciate getting back to the NYRA circuit. He ran some big races at Belmont and Saratoga last year, topped by that 131 Timeform US speed figure that he put forth in the Turf Classic at Belmont over soft going in the fall of last year. His recent races, they leave a little bit to be desired. He just didn't get the right trip in the Pegasus World Cup Turf 2-back when he was checked at the beginning of the race and just was never really settled. And that was again the story last time in the McDarmida. I can't really fault Joel Rosario for his early aggression because he drew the outside post position in an 11-horse field. He had to be somewhat aggressive to get early position, and it just kind of set Channel Maker off. He was too keen going around the first turn and really didn't settle until they crossed under the wire for the first time. He only lost that race by 1.25 lengths. I think he can do better in this spot getting back to Belmont Park. I just don't totally trust him, but he will be a decent price. My top pick in this Man of War is the number 4 Arklow. He's a horse that I think is just hitting his best stride. Last year, he ran deceptively well in a few races towards the end of the year without winning. 3 back in that Sycamore, I don't know what was really going on. He just somehow got outside in the early going, and Florent Giroux seemed unable to get him any sort of cover coming by the wire the first time, and Arklow just basically took off on him, coming past the wire, running up to challenge for the lead in the early going, just making a premature move in a 1.5 mile race, which was something you really can't do. Then in the Breeders' Cup Turf, he ran fine. I mean, he was 4th that day, only beaten 2 lengths out of 3rd position. I thought he really beat some nice horses that day. A bunch of horses didn't show up in that race, but he showed that I think he is grade 1 level. He returned at Keeneland last time, and you can't really call it a return because he dropped the rider at the start and got nothing out of that race. But Brad Cox has been doing very well in the last month or so, getting his horses to really perform at a high level. Arklow is a horse that I think has always possessed a ton of ability and just hasn't really gotten the right trips or been in the right situations to really show it. I think the 1 3/8 distance is going to be perfect for him, and if he's anywhere around his 8-1 morning line, he's a horse that I want to bet to win in this race. I'll use him with horses like Focus Group, Magic Wand, and Channel Maker underneath. So Arklow is my pick in the Man of War on Saturday at Belmont Park. Now I'll send it back to the studio.
Time for our best bet segment here on Out of the Gate. Mike Beer, NYRA analyst, you've got something at Belmont on Saturday.
Yeah, early on the card. There's a lot of stakes on the card. We're going to look at an allowance race, turf sprint for fillies and mares, race number 3. I'm going with number 8, Enthusiastic Gal in here. This is a mare now. She's 7 years old, and she had a big issue early on. She missed over 2 years of racing in her career. She came back last year, though, and it was almost like nothing affected her. She ran well right from the start, only wound up going 2 for 8 last year, but she ran well in all of her races, was a little unlucky not to have another win or 2. I want to look at the first time they turned her back to sprint. The first 5 starts off that long life were going longer. This is at Belmont Park. They turned her back to 6 furlongs, the distance she'll be running on Saturday, and she puts in a big run from the top of the stretch to go right over the top of a loose leader here at the end. I liked this win from her. They came back with a couple more sprints after this to close out her campaign, and she ran well on both of those starts as well. She is 3 for 3 on Belmont turf, and this is a field I think she fits really well in.
Really ran over the top of that leader late. That was a nice performance by Enthusiastic Gal. Matt, you've been chasing Reride for a long time. You got to play him back. He's going to be a price on Saturday.
Yeah, race 7 at Arlington. It's the Hanshin Cup. It's a 1-turn mile. It's a grade 3 race. Look, maybe this is the sort of definition of insanity where I just keep expecting something different to happen with Reride. I maintain he is a miler on grass. And I know this is a synthetic race, but his most recent run, let's take a look at that. This was at Keeneland over a muddy sealed track. And I think the thing that you want to keep in mind, he was at least more forwardly placed this day, and I think that's going to bode well going into this 1-turn mile on Saturday. There's other speed. He's not going to be up there on the front, but I think he can get the jump on the deep closers in here. I still maintain I want him on grass, but the synthetic experiment, we'll find out if it works. He's going to be 8-1, or at least he's 8-1 on the morning line. I got to give him another chance. I'm probably just chasing my tail, but I'll give him one more look.
My best bet on Saturday is at Santa Anita. It's the number 2 Chosen Vessel in race number 7, a $50,000 starter allowance. Now, this is a son of English Channel, and once transferred over to Craig DeLassy, I was a little bit surprised that they sprinted him down the hill. The English Channels usually want to go longer distances. Last time out, they stretched him out to this mile distance, and he ran a lot better. Let's take a look at the replay. He saved ground most of the way, but now he's going to angle out to the outside, and he's going to come with a determined enough run to finish 3rd, beaten a length. By far, this was his best race from a buyer speed figure standpoint. He earned an 85, and all he needs is a little bit of pace on Saturday, and I think he might actually get it with horses like Foray in here, North County Guy, and Quick Finish stretching out in distance. Chosen Vessel's fairly lightly raced for a 4-year-old. It'll be start number 8 on Saturday, and I think he has a chance to move forward in his second start of the form cycle. That's the 2 Chosen Vessel in race number 7 at Santa Anita on Saturday. We thank you so much for watching Out of the Gate, and we urge you to follow all of DRF TV's latest offerings on social media. Please follow on Twitter at DRF Video, and for the latest news and notes from America's Turf Authority Daily Racing Form, please follow on Twitter at DRF Inside Post. That's it for this week. Best of luck when your horses break out of the gate.